Okay, so back to where we were. So once you have everyone checked in and everyone's pays due, mark them as paid, and all their Fargo ratings put in, which I need to do that for these guys really quick. Knew I forgot to do something. Obviously, these are all fake. Then no, these are right, but that's fine. It gives you a rough idea, though. All right. So once you got everyone's Frogger ratings put in and everything, the next thing I do is where this randomized roster button's at. That is what I click. Obviously, if I have more people, I'll click it more than once. It's usually like every 10, 10, 5, 10, I'll shuffle it. But once you have all of that set, do know you cannot change anything on this left-hand side, 1 through 9, after you already have this set. Actually 1 through 11. So once this is set, this is done. So I am done. I'm ready to go. So I'm going to hit start chip tournament. And it'll say that this is what it's going to be displayed as. Yada, yada, yada. Asks if you want to continue to draw. You can read all that if you prefer. Once we actually get into it, this is exactly what this is going to look like for the whole time. So a few different things to go over. Here on the very bottom here, these, all the numbers, the 1 through 64, these are all the tables that you can play on. So let's say we've got 6 tables. Actually, let's do 4. So let's say we have 4 tables. As I click on these and turn them green, you'll notice here on the top right-hand side, you'll see 1 through 12. These are the first 12 tables, but obviously we only have 4, so only 4 are truly highlighted. So these are the number tables of obviously what you are choosing to play on. Now, another thing is what you see up here just above those tables, you see what looks like people on horses. This is that race setting that I was telling you about earlier. That's also under your tools, or excuse me, that is also under your setup and under your race settings. So you can get to it in 2 different spots. But by clicking on that, if you're deciding to do a race, you can change this to whatever it may be. And then when you go to submit the scores, it'll say what was the score. Was it 2-1, 2-0, yada, yada, yada. But for this instance, let's just do a race to 1. Right next to that is what looks like a clock, right? These are the timers. So when you announce a game by putting that or the 2 opponents against each other on a table, that'll automatically start a clock. And you can choose to have it set a timer for you where if it's been 15 minutes, it'll notify you. It'll kind of turn it a different color, but you can tell how long they've been playing on that table, which is what I found is very handy. Um, what else? What else? Here on the left hand side is where you can see everybody that has been registered and has paid and checked in. Once they've all been shuffled, this is where they go. So as you can see, James has 4 chips, Daniel 3, Claire 5, so forth and so forth, because this is based off their Fargo rating, right? And I always double check it just to make sure. But like I said, under the chip distribution, if you think something's wrong, just go to your setup, go to your chip distribution table, and just make sure you have this set to what you'd like it to be. Also down here, I call this the chalkboard. Also on the bottom of the chalkboard, once you go to input the games on who won and who's lost, they will go under here when you have it clicked on results. This will show who's defeated who got a canceled game, who's been moved where. This will show all of that. And it's actually very handy because if I'm starting to get down to it, I can see, oh, this person's already played this person, but it's been a while, or they just played each other, or okay, they just won 2 games, it's time to get off, stuff like that. So I find this part very handy. You can also go to the stats where it tells you how many players are remaining, how many total chips were distributed, how many are left, yada, yada, yada. Very nice and handy. And then the log, I don't really do anything with the log. So right here in the middle of the screen is obviously your board, right? So this looks way different than what a normal tournament would necessarily look like. Obviously, you've got the players' names and you have these little red chips, and you can change these colors, by the way. I'll show you what to do that in a second. But these are the chips, right? So, like we just said, so like James Bayes, he's got 4 chips. As you can see, there's 4 red dots. Daniel's got 3 chips. There's 3 dots, right? So, those are how many chips you have. As you lose a chip, it will gray out. And that's how you know how many you have left compared to how many you don't, or how many you've lost. The way that this works is the top is actually who's waiting. So James James is the last one, or I'm the last one. But it goes from the top and it snakes down. So if you're here, you then go here, and then you move to the left, and then you go down, and you move to the left. Whoever's in orange is who's up on tables. Whoever is in green is who's waiting. So it goes from the top to the bottom. So, for instance, let's say we were starting. So Breck and Claire, I don't have enough people for 4 tables, so we're going to do 2 tables. So Breck and Claire are up on table 1. How you do this, you see this little blue dot that's next to the player on the left's picture, if they had one. You left click, hold, and you drag it to the table that you want them to be on. Then you let go, and it'll automatically put them on that table, and that timer will start, okay? And then, like this is saying, it's 8 minutes allowed. It's however long you want. That doesn't matter. And then let's say Chris and Daniel are up. So I'm going to left click, hold, and drag to table 2. I have announced their games. They're now approaching their tables. So now let's say Breck and Claire got done, okay? And let's say Claire won. You'll hover over Claire's name and you're going to right click. Once you do that, you're going to see a menu that pops up. The most important things on this menu that I ever really mess with is whether they won or they lost. And if for some reason you have any issues and you need to adjust to chips, let's say maybe they don't have a Fargo, but you want to give them more chips or you want to give them less, you can do that here. And I tend to try to take care of this before I ever start a tournament. So that's where you can do that. The other thing too is, let's say Claire had already played Breck and I don't want her playing him. There's an option to send her to the top of the waiting list, and that's also under the chip manual adjustment, and it's right here. Send Claire to the top of waiting list. When you click on that and actually do that, it'll ask, do you want to do that? You click yes, and it'll send her up to the top, and then it'll pull the next player down. And that's what I was telling you about doing King of the Hill style, where I keep the winner on the table for 2 games. That's where I would push that at. So anyhow, let's say Claire won. So I'll mark her or right click, hit Clear 1. It'll ask if this is correct. We will click yes or correct. And then you'll have a box that pops up. Make sure you hit commit results. If you want to read these things, you can. I see no need to. And as you can see, it is now, the way I have mine set up is that Claire is going to stay on the table because she won. And Breck has now gone to the back or the top of the waiting list, if you will. So this is the very last person, and then you move, come down, move, okay? So as you can see next to Breck's name, he's got a grayed out chip, so that means he has now lost a chip, right? If you win a game, you do not gain. You can only lose chips by losing games, okay? So now let's say Chris and Daniel have played, and let's say Daniel won. So I do the same thing, right-click, Daniel won. Make sure that looks correct. Hit correct. And then hit commit results. And as you can see, now Daniel stays on the table and I play him. And then you just do that same thing again. Claire and James, left click, hold, drag that blue dot to a table. It'll then show their names on that table. And then let's say Daniel and I have already played each other for some reason. If you go to the results down here on that chalkboard, like I said, you can watch this and you can see, right? So let's say Daniel and I have already played. Do not do anything with the dot yet, because you want to make sure no one's on, you can't have them on the table. Let's say if you accidentally had already moved them and you're like, oh shit, they've already played. All you have to do is left click onto the table that they're on, or right click onto the table that they're on, and then return players to the waiting, and it'll put them right back how it was. Super easy. If you make a mistake, it's better to not, because it tends to be a pain in the ass, because if you mark the wrong person as a win or a loss, you then have to move them back to where they were and then do that whole right click and go to chip adjustment by adding or losing a chip. So it becomes a pain. So if you can do it right the first time, that's what I recommend. So again, let's say Daniel and I had already played each other. All you have to do is one of 2 things. If you have a crap ton of players, you can do what I do, and I'll look to see who's next. So Breck's next. And if I've noticed that on my chalkboard that Breck and Daniel have not played each other yet, all I'm going to simply do is I'm just going to swap Breck and I. And all you have to do is, if you click and hold, left click and hold my name, and then move it to Breck and let go, it'll ask, do you want to swap the positions? You click yes. and that's just going to switch Brick and I. So then all that's doing is now that's putting me to next open, and that's now making Breck play now because let's say, again, Daniel and I have already played. Super easy. Now let's say Daniel wins again. Hit correct. Hit commit. I am now getting a notification saying, hey, Daniel's won 2 games in a row. So, again, I have mine set up for that, and I'll show you where to do that here in a second. What you then do, again, if you want to do this King of the Hill style, you can. I'm going to right-click on Daniel's name. I'm going to go to that chip manual adjustment, and I'm going to go send Daniel to the top of the waiting list. You're going to click Commit Results, and you're going to notice, boom, Daniel has now gone to the top of the waiting list, but he still has all of his chips because he didn't win or lose anything, right? We just moved him. And I now play that next person that was open. So that is how you do all of that. Let me show you where the settings are really quick. Well, let's check our time before I get too far ahead of myself. All right, I got 4 minutes. Okay, let me show you where the settings at for the actual what we were just talking about. Settings and defaults. So when you go into the settings and defaults, this is, you might want to like maybe pause this video and look at this. This is how I have mine set up. Alert if they're on the same table twice. Alert if the same, or more than twice, excuse me. Enable Fargo functions. Make sure you've got that turned on. Like I said, remember you have to email them first. Confirm winner and scorers, yes. Show match results on bracket, yes. Warn if there's a new alias, yes. Chips wins in a row, 2. That is a very important one. So just, make sure you have what you want picked. You can also change the color of the tables. You can change the background, like mine's Nibbler red. You can change the color of the players' highlight stuff. You can do all that kind of stuff, and you can mess with the payouts and stuff. I don't really mess with a lot of other things. I kind of kept it pretty basic for what I wanted, but this is where some of those other settings are at as well. So now let's say we're all done. Let's say I'm just going to start marking people's losses so I can show you really quick. Only because this is the only way it's going to let me do this. Let me pick the people with the least amount of chips. How much time do I have left? Okay, I'm going to pause this really quick. I'm going to get rid of everybody really quick for chips, and then that way I don't run out of time. So give me 1 second. Okay, so now let me go back to where I was. Okay, so let's say Breck lost his last game, right? As you notice too, everyone now shows eliminated because they've all lost, right? They have no chips left, so they are out. All right, so now it's going to say this is your last player standing. It's now closing the session, okay? What you want to do is 2 things. 1, your Fargo rate down here, you want to click on the little box that's next to it. It's going to show you one of these color codes, right? Basically, if it's ready to submit, it's going to be green with an arrow. Obviously, this is not a valid one because I don't have 7 participants, but if all of these are checked, validated, good to go, then you can submit to Fargo. It'll ask, do you want to submit? You'll click yes again, and then it'll say, finally, are you sure? You click yes one more time, and it'll say success, it's been submitted. It truly takes about 5 to 6 days for that one to kick in. So, give it time, but that should go. Again, make sure you email them, and it had to have been before you started, okay? The other thing too, really quick before my time runs out, you can upload the bracket. This will give you a website. Once you click on this upload arrow, it'll say upload in session. Mind you, I want to tell you, click this auto upload. When you do that, it's going to say, hey, this is an attempt to do yada yada, hit OK. Make sure that's checked and then hit close. What that's going to do is it'll, every time you make a change, it'll automatically upload to the website. That link to the website's here in this top left. If you click on it, you then can copy paste and then send it on to Facebook or wherever you'd like for it to be shared. Once you're all done, you just hit the X button. Do you want to close? Yes. And it'll back it all up for you. And then you are all set and ready to go. If you got any questions or concerns, let me know. And I do not mind helping you. Just give me a call. And then this asks, do you want it back up? Just hit yes. And then it'll automatically close everything all out for you. But good luck. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know.